Is the M1 MacBook Pro worth $300 more than the M1 MacBook Air? Which one should you get? Let's talk about it. Hi, this is David of Tech for Baba, a channel I share my experiences on how technology enhances my time with kids and family as a dad. If this is your first time here, welcome. Please consider subscribing. These first Apple Silicon M1 MacBooks are very fast. Since both the MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro now have the same M1 chip inside, even though the base Air has 7 GPU cores instead of 8, their performances are practically the same in most applications. Therefore, I think the M1 MacBook Air is the one to get for most people. If you haven't seen my review of the MacBook Air or my thoughts on the specs of these M1 Macs in general, I'll link my earlier videos here and below in the description. In today's video, let's just focus on what more we get for $300 with the M1 MacBook Pro. Before we get into these upgrades, they have the exact same width and length, but there's a small difference in thickness and weight between the two. The MacBook Pro is the same thickness all the way through, while the Air is actually a tiny bit thicker in the back. Yep, the Air is actually thicker in the back. Not by much, and it tapers off to be much thinner towards the front. The MacBook Pro is also about 0.2 pounds heavier. While these differences are small, the Air just feels more portable whenever I pick it up. Oh, and the Pro does not come in the gold color. Okay, onto the upgrades we get with the MacBook Pro. First is a brighter screen. The Pro and the Air have the same 13.3 Retina display with P3 white color gamut and True Tone. The only difference is the screen on the Pro is 100 nits brighter at 500 nits. In my day-to-day use, the screen on the Air is more than bright enough for me. However, it's always nice to have a screen that can go brighter if it's ever needed. This is a nice to have upgrade. Second is a bigger trackpad. This may not be obvious by itself, but when I put the Pro and the Air side by side, you can see the trackpad on the Pro is a little bit larger on all sides. The trackpads on these Macs are still the best ones around, and I have not felt the one on the Air is too small, but larger is always better. So here again, it's a nice to have upgrade. Third upgrade is the touch bar over the physical function keys on the Air. Not sure about you, but this is actually not even a nice to have upgrade for me. This one depends on what you prefer. After using the touch bar for many years, I still prefer the physical function keys. Fourth upgrade is better audio. The Pro has better studio quality mics and more dynamic speakers. Let me show you both so you can have a listen for yourself. Here's what the mics on the MacBook Air sound like. I'll switch over to the Pro in 3, 2, 1. Here's what the mics sound like on the Pro. Apple says these mics are upgraded studio quality mics with high signal-to-noise ratio. Can you hear the difference? Let me know in the comments below. I'll now switch back to my regular mic in 3, 2, 1. To be honest, I can hardly tell which mics are better. Let's try the speakers. Here's what the speakers on the Air sound like. And here's what the Pro speakers sound like. For me, the Air actually sounds a bit louder. The Pro seems to have more separation in the mids and highs here and there, but it's not that clear to me which speakers are better. Which one sounds better to you? Let me know in the comments below. Fifth upgrade is more battery life. The battery life on these new M1 MacBooks are just amazing. 15 hours of wireless web on the Air and 2 more hours on the Pro. Apple managed to make the M1 chip run much faster and consume less energy at the same time. In my day-to-day use, I have not needed to charge my MacBook Air during the day. It just keeps on going and going, but having even more battery life on the Pro is always nice. This is another nice to have upgrade. Okay, let's pause for a sec and see what we have so far. For $300, the upgrades so far are a brighter screen, which is nice to have, a bigger trackpad, which is nice to have, a touch bar instead of physical function keys, which may or may not be an upgrade depending on your preference, better mics and speakers, which I can't really tell much difference, and more battery life, which is certainly nice to have. If these are the only upgrades, I say that Pro is not worth $300 more for sure. But there's one last upgrade we haven't talked about, and that's the added fan for better thermal management on the Pro. When the chips run too hot from heavy processing tasks like video rendering and graphic gaming for a long time, modern computers slow themselves down artificially to keep themselves cool for long-term reliability and protection. Having a fan to actively cool off these machines will allow them to run faster longer. If you still have one of the Intel Inside MacBooks, you know what I'm talking about. The fans on them are loud and kick in way too often since the Intel chips get too hot quickly. The Apple M1 chip is so power efficient that I can hardly get the fan to turn on the Pro. And when it finally does, the RPM remains quite low, so the Pro is never loud from the fan spinning. I think the fan is the biggest difference between these M1 MacBook Air and Pro. Along with the one additional GPU core, the fan on the Pro can be beneficial for those who render long high-resolution videos all day, or a few who play graphic-intensive games on a Mac for hours on end. One thing to consider if those are your use cases though, there will be more powerful Apple Silicon Macs coming later this year. These more Pro Macs will have even more powerful M1X or M2 chips, more memory options, more Thunderbolt ports, possibly better screens, and even a new body design. Oh, and hopefully a better webcam finally. So you may want to wait for these upcoming Pro Macs if you can. For others who need to get a new laptop now, I still think MacBook Air is the one to get. If I can spend a bit more, I'd rather spend $200 more for a MacBook Air with 16 GB of memory than $300 more for a base MacBook Pro with 8 GB of memory. Thanks for watching. If you find this video helpful, please also help me out by hitting the like button and sharing this video with others. Are you getting an M1 MacBook Pro instead of the Air? I'd love to know which upgrades you value in the comments below. If you want to see more videos on how technology can enhance our life with kids and family, please subscribe and turn on the bell to be notified when I put out my next video. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, cherish each moment.